You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. All right, welcome in to today's episode. My friend Scott Corley, who's the athletic director at Belmont University. For those of you who know I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and Belmont is about 2 drivers and a 9-iron from my office. But here we are on this video conference. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to spend some time with you.
Well, I thought you were probably going to say, thanks for having me, Mike, but for you, it wouldn't be 2 drivers and a 9-iron to be getting in the golf cart and driving down the road because you can't hit it that far, something like that, right? So it's good.
I wouldn't dare criticize anybody's golf game, especially yours.
It is so good to be with you today, and certainly as someone who lives here in Nashville, have tremendous respect for Belmont University and for you and the job that you're doing there, and love watching all the success the Bruins have had across the board, certainly in basketball in particular, that you're known for more nationally. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and the things that are going on campus and your unique career path into the AD chair, and maybe one of the all-time great one of the all-time great basketball coaches, Rick Byrd, who was your coach and my friend, and I want to spend some time talking about Rick as well. So, let's start there if we could. You were actually Rick's first recruit, if I remember correctly, in 1986. At the time, Belmont was in an NAIA school, and Rick had just, I think, arrived from Maryville College in East Tennessee, and he was already a successful coach, but my word, the things he's accomplished over these years before retirement, just insane. Tell me what his pitch to you was and coming and recruiting you to come to Belmont University.
Yeah, that's a great one there. I tell people jokingly, my blessing was he never saw me play. He was just taking the advice from some friends that I was good enough to play for him. And so, I remember because he got the job after the basketball season had ended at Belmont. And I remember him coming to watch me play baseball in high school and just getting to know him and getting to learn what he was wanting to do at Belmont. And for me, it was a great opportunity to stay in town. I played and grew up just south of Nashville in Brentwood, Tennessee, and didn't know a whole lot about Belmont. Lipscomb was the big king in the NAIA world, and they were recruiting me as well. But I just really liked what Coach Byrd, his personality, his demeanor. Belmont for me, I also was able to get an academic a scholarship to come to Belmont as well. And when I lined things up, it just seemed like the right fit. And boy, what a great decision for me personally to get to play for a Hall of Fame coach in the way that he built the foundation for this program that, for him 33 years later, he leaves with, over 800 wins. And to your point, is one of the all-time greatest coaches in NCAA history.
Known for his sweater vest, right? And a seemingly calm demeanor, a great golf game. Certainly you could tell every now and then when he might be upset on the sidelines, and I'm sure you saw that in practice sometime and in the locker room. What would you say was distinctively different or unique about Coach Byrd's ability to get out of his players, what he was able to get out of his players? And, oh, by the way, too, Scott, here's the thing. He shared with me a number of times, Belmont was not recruiting 4- and 5-star guys. They had to, he really had to hone in on who are the guys that fit his system. It was a very much about a system, right? So interested in your perspective on that part of his tenure.
I think the best thing for him, he's just very transparent and honest. And, all through the recruiting process, I mean, he would really tell the kids to, think about it, not pressure them, really build that relationship and connections with the players and the parents. And when you played for him, you knew where you stood, whether, what things you needed to work on. And he had just an amazing ability to also make everyone feel valued, everybody's role. I remember the very first meeting we had as a team, he said, everybody on this team gets the same awards at the end of the year. There's no MVPs. There's no best offensive player. He goes, everyone, including the managers, we all got the same thing. And I think that resonates to a lot of people. I know it resonated with me. And, the other thing about him, Mike, he's the most competitive guy I've been around. whether it was playing ping pong matches or other things. He wanted to win. And I think a lot of people like me wanted to play for a coach who was going to do everything to help us win. And we saw all the work that he put into it, all the detail. He was an offensive genius. And I think it didn't take any of us as players long to figure that out. So we might as well listen to him because he's going to make us better. And I think everybody at the end of the day, when they come to college, they want to play for a coach who's going to make them better. And Coach Byrd did that for so many guys. I mean, the way, to your point, if you can't recruit those 4 and 5 stars, you got to recruit 1 and 2s and really coach them up. And I think that was a key to his success. He was able to identify players that fit his system and then make sure they got better as the years went on.
So for those who are listening that may not know this, you left Belmont as the all-time three-point leader in Belmont history and still hold that record, and no one is close to you. I think you hit 423 pointers, and Ian Clark had 340, and Ian played in the NBA. And that's a pretty wide delta between 420 and 340. So was that the guy firing the bullet, or was it the guy who was getting you open through play calling?
Well, I'm going to say it was, I was a pretty good shooter, but everybody says, the reason I have the most is because I shot it every time. So I did get a lot of open looks, though, Mike, and it was because of Coach Byrd. I mean, there is no doubt in that. And, I was very blessed. My freshman year was the first year the three-point line came into the NCAA, so my value went up pretty good because that was my thing I was good at. And so, and Coach Byrd adopted it. I mean, he adopted the three-point line. He understood spacing, and I had an All-American in the paint and Joe Bailing, and so we could throw it into Joe. He'd get double teamed, and they'd leave me open. So it worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah, and look, I want to talk in a few minutes about your move to the Missouri Valley Conference, but I want to stop for just a moment and talk about, given the success that you guys have had over the years, but in particular over the last, let's call it 7 or 8 years. I know that scheduling has had to have been very difficult. A lot of folks don't want to come to the Curb Event Center. You've gone on the road to Cameron Indoor Stadium and a number of other tough places to play. And I'm curious now, given that, are you still having the difficulty? What's your philosophy as it relates to building a non-conference schedule around what will be a very tough MVC schedule?
Yeah, I mean, we had to look at that this year, given the MVC and the strength of that conference, the fact that we lost a lot of veteran players last year. So Casey and I, talk about that. But it's hard. It's hard to get any home and homes. It's hard to figure out what dates. Everybody in this business understands that. We certainly love the challenge of going on the road and playing Power Fives and having the opportunity. I do think that helps with a student athlete experience at our level to get in and try to beat the Dukes. And we've had some success at Alabama, at Missouri, at Cincinnati over the years. And that's the other problem. If you go into those places and win, they really don't even want to play you at all. And so, I'm still hopeful, though, as we are in the Missouri Valley. I mean, I think there's reasons teams should be playing us. We're typically gonna have a good net ranking when it's all said and done, and we do try to play a very competitive non-conference schedule. We've set up home and homes with Furman, who's really good, as people know. We've Ohio, who's had some success in the tournament recently. So we try to balance it. And, unfortunately, a lot of fans and fan bases don't appreciate the quality of those opponents at the mid-major level. But those are hard games, particularly on the road. And so I always appreciated it with Coach Byrd and Casey as well. They're not afraid to play in tough environments and on the road. I think we have – I don't know the exact stat, Mike, but I think we're in the top 5 for most road wins over the last 10 years, which tells you a little bit about we'll go anywhere to play good people.
Yeah. So when you guys joined the Ohio Valley Conference, you were the only non-football playing school that in the conference, and very quickly you and Murray State have dominated that league in basketball for a number of years, and now both teams are exiting to go to the Missouri Valley. I'm curious your long-term strategy, and this may be kind of maybe even a dumb question to ask, Scott. But you always want to be the best. You want to be the best wherever you are. But aspirationally, can Belmont be a Xavier, a Butler, Gonzaga? Or do you even are those part? Is that part of your long range plan, or is it
Yeah.
just, hey, let's just keep getting better?
Well, I mean, obviously, you got to have some long-term aspirations, and certainly, we've got a new president, Greg Jones, who's come from Duke, and so he's experienced college basketball at the highest level, and we want to be very competitive wherever we are, and we talk about Butler and the Xaviers and whatnot. We've got a lot of attributes that I think can be very attractive to us achieving some of those lofty expectations. Clearly, the city of Nashville has been a real positive for Belmont as a university, and that's part of it, Mike. As you know, leaving the Ohio Valley to the Missouri Valley, some of that had to do with just where we are as a university. I mean, we've got 9,000 enrollment now. We've got a beautiful new practice facility that we just invested in, and so as the university was growing, we kind of looked at things and said, where's our next move? And the Missouri Valley just made so much sense to us. And I think we're going to be able to be competitive right away. A lot of people have told me about when Loyola Chicago joined, leaving the Horizon to join the Missouri Valley. They weren't very good leaving the Horizon, but the move to the Valley helped them make the investment, and they made the investments necessary. And then they started having some success, and look where they are now. And so, for us, I feel like we can be competitive. I feel like we're certainly entering the conference with a lot of positive momentum. And now you still got to go out and you got to play. And that's what this year is. It's just a year of first, a lot of different travel, going to different venues. There'll be a lot more home court advantages in the Missouri Valley than what we're accustomed to in the OVC. And I tell our fan base all the time, the days of not playing our best and still winning by double digits may not occur in the Missouri Valley. So now, I'm a big believer in winning tradition and winning culture, and I've got a great coaching staff with Casey on the men's side and Bart Brooks on the women's side. So that gives me a lot of comfort that we can come in and hopefully be competitive.
I have no doubt, man. So you got, for those who haven't been to Belmont's campus, you alluded to it. It's an unbelievably beautiful campus, and candidly, with so many new and fresh buildings, and you're buying up space in adjacent neighborhoods to build new dorm space and all those kind of things. You've really got something to sell to on top of the city. Speaking of the city, we have a lot of good basketball in this town, right? And so you've got within 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you've got Austin Peay, you've got Tennessee State, Fisk University, Trevecca, Middle Tennessee State, Vanderbilt, Lipscomb. How do you find your place in the middle of all that?
Well, I think we've done a good job. Winning helps a lot in the consistency of winning. I think on top of that, when you look at the quality of our student athletes, the academic achievements that they've made, I think they're just great representatives within this busy market that you talk about. And not only with basketball, then you got Predators and Titans and Nashville SC on the soccer side. So, we work really hard to make sure, and as you know, Nashville's got a ton of people moving to town. So we want to try to get to those people and say, hey, give us a try. I think when you do come to a Belmont game, you're going to find it's a great venue. We got 5,000 seats. There's not a bad seat in the house. I think the ticket pricing is very reasonable. We don't charge for parking. So, I mean, you look at the family entertainment value, that's something that we've kind of been leaning on over the years. Is it's a great place to bring kids and watch some really good basketball. And now I think the quality of the basketball is only going to get better by being in the Missouri Valley. So we're certainly going to promote that a lot when we're out, trying to get those competitive entertainment dollars.
So let's talk about the Battle of the Boulevard for just a minute. So for those, again, who are not familiar, Lipscomb University and Belmont University are a very short distance from each other along Belmont Boulevard. And so the series has become called the Battle of the Boulevard. I think there was even maybe a time when you played that they played in front of 16,000 fans at Memorial Gym on Vanderbilt's campus, if I remember correctly. And it's hotly contested. And I would assume, even with your move to the Valley, does this continue to be a series that's a priority for Belmont? And maybe explain to the listeners who aren't familiar just the significance of that particular competition, the Battle of the Boulevard.
Yeah, you're right. No, we're gonna continue it. It's too important to both us and Lipscomb. The fact that the schools are a mile apart. And when I was playing, Belmont was a Baptist university. Lipscomb had the Church of Christ, so you had that angle, and both programs were really really good. Lipscomb was led by a Hall of Famer Don Meyer, who was a legendary coach, and what he built, and we were kind of the upstarts. And you're right, you've got a good memory. My senior year, we were able to play in front of 16,000 people. We sold out Memorial Gymnasium at Vanderbilt to see two NAIA schools. I mean, that just tells you the level of that rivalry in Nashville. And the great thing is, it really hadn't stopped. I mean, both fan bases kind of circle that on the calendar, and we're going to continue it. We did stop doing the home and homes. We had been doing those, and then when COVID hit, we kind of had to go to one game. And I think both coaches now like the one game, and so this year we're at Lipscomb, and they'll be coming back here. Yeah, I see no reason to end that rivalry, because it's too good, and it's got too good of a brand around it. Everybody around town, they may not follow us or Lipscomb that much, but they've heard about the Battle of the Boulevard.
Exactly what's the distance between the two schools?
I think it is 1 mile. I mean, the funny story, when I hired Casey lived literally right in the middle between Belmont and Lipscomb. So when he was the head coach at Lipscomb, he'd come out of his neighborhood and turn right and go a half a mile. Now he comes out of the neighborhood and turns left and goes a half a mile.
Yeah, and then Vanderbilt's about a half a mile from campus as well, right? So
That's
pretty
right.
pretty wild, the setting there. Hey, so look, you have been in this town for a long time, in Nashville for a long time, and you had a very successful career in banking, and you obviously had the chance to come back to your alma mater. I'm sure that probably had a lot to do with why you're at Belmont now. But tell me, well, let's talk to that, but then also tell me specifically how you feel like your career in banking and being in the community has been helpful to what you're doing today.
Yeah, Belmont would be the only AD job I had an interest in, and candidly, it was a lot about timing when the opportunity presented itself. I certainly was very involved at Belmont after my playing days. I got to know Mike Strickland, the previous AD, who did an amazing job taking us from NAI to Division One. I was president of the alumni board, so I got to know Dr. Fisher, who was president at the time, Bob Fisher, and so I knew a lot of people. And when Mike called me, and Mike and I would go have lunch periodically, and he'd always say, "Hey, I'm not ready yet. I got one more thing to do, one more project to do," and so I never really knew if and when the opportunity presented itself would I really be interested in it. And then he called me, I think it was February 2016, and said, "I'm retiring at the end of May." And he encouraged me. He said, I think you ought to apply for it. And at that time, I was about to be an empty nester. My youngest daughter was coming to Belmont as a freshman. And you know what? It was one of those put up or shut up moments where I said, if I don't at least try, I will regret it. And if I don't get it, I've got a great banking career, and I'll keep doing that in the banking world. And so, lo and behold, Dr. Fisher took a chance on me. He took a chance on me because I had an amazing staff that he knew they wouldn't let me screw it up as I learned the business and the day-to-day things that go into the job. But to answer the other part of your question, I do think my background in banking and being in the Nashville community, there's a lot of skill sets that translate to the AD job. Banking is a lot about relationship building and networking and finding win-win solutions. And well, that's what we do as ADs a lot. When you're looking at external stuff, it's how are you going to build, those relationships and convince donors of the value that they bring to the table. And so hopefully I've been able to bring a lot of that, a lot of just being in this town, in that banking business. I'm calling on CEOs and CFOs of so many different companies that has helped me get into some doors here at Belmont. And so I do think while it's a unique pathway, I do think there's a lot of skill sets that translate, and I've been fortunate. And at the end of the day, Mike, look, it's a place I love. Belmont is a place I love and care about. And I think when you're trying to sell any product in life, if you are passionate and you believe in it, you're going to be a better salesperson. And hopefully that comes through in what I do every day here at Belmont when I'm interacting with people.
No doubt, man. So let me ask you this. You were in the community. You were very engaged in alumni activities. Had a very successful athletic career at Belmont. You were coming to games. I'm sure, like most fans, you would say, boy, if I were the AD, I would, or they should have done this, or they should have done that. How deep into your tenure did you realize, man, I had no idea? How long did that take you?
I wouldn't say very long, to be honest with you. I definitely got a better appreciation for scheduling, like we talked about earlier. As a fan, I'm like, why can't we get more people to come to these games? And then it's, why can't we get more butts in the seat? And you realize on the inside, it's not as easy as people think out there. I mean, we've got a lot of people who work really, really hard and do a wonderful job. And so you've got a greater appreciation when every day you're sitting there going, why can't we sell out the arena or things like that? It's just, and just the whole culture and the aspect of running an athletic department. I mean, you've got different personalities, you got different needs. You've got a lot of sports that, for me, one thing when I came in is I didn't want to be just seen as loving basketball. And I've really grown to appreciate and enjoy cheering on all my student athletes because they all work so hard in the sport that they love and care about. And so for me, that was certainly a learning curve, as well as how do these sports even work? What goes into a track and field meet, and what goes into the cross country season and things like that. And so that was a pretty steep learning curve, but I've really enjoyed getting to know those different sports, and now I really enjoy all of them equally. But yeah, it's different when you're a fan on the outside looking in, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So, look, the Ohio Valley Conference is based here in Nashville. Been around for a long, long time, but you guys recently made the move to the Valley, which we've alluded to here in the conversation. Um, a conference that's got great basketball history as well. Obviously, I'm curious. So, why was now the time? Why was it that now was the time to move to the Valley? What the decision process and how you guys analyzed that and made the decision to make the jump?
Yeah, fair question. I mean, as you know, Mike, a lot of those decisions start at the presidential level. And so I do think with the presidential change, you've got Greg Jones coming in and looking at the landscape differently than Bob Fisher was looking at it. And that's not a criticism to Dr. Fisher at all, and myself. I mean, there were a lot of things I loved about the OVC. I loved it was a bus league. I loved, obviously, we were able to be successful. But when you started looking at the landscape and the OVC was losing some schools, that were pretty good in investing in athletics, it kind of got to, where do we need to position ourselves? And again, it goes back to our university is growing and, nationally and things like that. And clearly the Missouri Valley is attractive from the Chicago market to, different markets for us, that the new president and myself felt like, you know what, if we're going to do it, now's a good time to do it. The Missouri Valley is really a nice mix. It's half private, half public. We were the only private school in the OVC. Clearly the basketball, which is, we don't have football, so it's a basketball focused league, where the OVC was still having to balance, where did people want to invest, whether it was in football or basketball. And so a lot of those things were very attractive to us, and it just felt like now was the right time to make the move. And looking back, I mean, our donors are excited. The board of trustees and Milton Johnson, the chairman of the board, he was so supportive of it. It was great alignment, and it's refreshing to see, the support from the donors. We've raised over $7 million since the announcement to help us transition, because there is added cost of travel and things like that. And our donor base was they stepped up and understood that. So, it was not, the timing. It's never easy. That was a tough phone call to make, to bet the Bush. I've got a lot of respect as commissioner of the OVC. But you got to look at it from the university perspective, and I think we all felt it was the right move.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the narrative around that, totally get it. Have you seen? You mentioned the donations. Have you seen what's it look like in terms of season ticket sales or individual sales?
Yeah, right now we're tracking well. I wouldn't say there's been a huge spike. I mean, some of it is, in the OVC we had double headers for conference games. Now the Missouri Valley doesn't do that, so I think our fan base is trying to adjust to the number of home games that are going to be played throughout, the weeks and whatnot. But I think it's part of it's on us. We've got to educate. We've got to let our fan base know the quality of schools that'll be coming into the curb, and we're 3 weeks out from tip off when we're taping this, and so we're going to make a mad push here. And I expect the ticket sales to be really, really strong. I do think we're going to get a lot of visiting team fans from everybody that I've talked to at these other Missouri Valley schools. They're like, we're circling the Belmont game so our fans can come to Nashville and have a good time. So I think we'll be in a good spot revenue wise for sure.
But I tell you, I give you credit. I bought tickets to a couple games last year and came and watched, and I can't tell you how many emails I've had and calls I've had from your ticket staff about season ticket purchases. So they're on it to let you know they're working for sure.
That's good to know. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, so coming down the backstretch here, I really wanted to know. So two more questions. You mentioned the Crockett Center, your new basketball practice facility, and then Rose Park is where you have a number of your non-rev and Olympic sports facilities, and that's a shared facility opportunity, right? I think it gets some city usage, if I recall correctly. Maybe I know the advantages of having a basketball practice facility, so I want to give you a chance to tout the special nature of that facility. But then I also would love to just hear how it's working for you at Rose Park, the advantages of having some shared facilities, the disadvantage of that. And I know it's a little bit removed from campus, not far, but it is a little bit removed from campus. Comment on facilities if you would.
Yeah, I feel really good where we are on facilities. Needless to say, Crockett Center is a game changer for us. I tell people all the time, the move to the Missouri Valley was a lot easier with the Crockett Center having been built, because without a dedicated practice facility for those sports, the player development part is challenging, and recruits know that and see that. So, the feedback we've gotten on the facility has been great. I mean, we've had the New Orleans Pelicans practiced in it last year when they got displaced by the hurricane, and they couldn't stop raving about it. So that made me feel pretty good that you got an NBA team speaking how highly they feel about that practice facility. So just blessed to have that. Dan Crockett, who's a dear friend of mine, to have his name on the building means a lot to me. We go back to when we were 13 years old, and he was a catcher and I was the pitcher, and so that means a lot to me from that standpoint. But game changer for sure. Rose Park, when you're landlocked like we are, you've got to get creative with solutions. And credit to Mike Strickland and Dr. Fisher, 11, 12 years ago, they identified a piece of real estate that was city owned and still is to this day. It's owned by Metro Parks. But we went in there and we renovated this area and invested $10 to $12 million into that. And, it obviously gives us a place to play and practice for baseball, softball, men's and women's soccer, and track and field. And it is a gorgeous view of downtown Nashville. I mean, it is really a nice facility, and we certainly sell that aspect of it. As you know, the challenges with anything that's a public-private partnership is the community does get use in it, so it gets a lot of use, a lot of wear and tear. And so we're having to replace things probably sooner in a useful life than if it was just a Belmont-only facility. But those are things we can manage, and I feel like we've done a really good job building support in that community. We've always tried to be a good partner. We've tried to do everything we said we could do out there, and it's worked. It's worked. It's our coaches know how to recruit to it and talk about the pluses and minuses, and again, we just we're grateful to have that type of property so close to campus when the city of Nashville is growing and booming. there's not a whole lot of tracts of land where you can get 26 acres or 30 acres, whatever it is, and build. So we've got a long-term lease with the city. It was a 40-year lease, so we plan on being out there for a while.
Well, and the way your campus keeps growing, you're getting closer to it every day, right? So
We are. That's
that's
exactly right.
that's good. Yeah. All right. So we've talked about the success of the Crockett Center and that being a real significant catalyst for your basketball program. We've talked about the move into the Valley. You had success across all sports, but basketball is what Belmont's most known for. What's on Scott Corley's horizon? What's the next big thing you feel like you guys have got to knock down as you think about strategic planning over the next 12 to, let's call it, 36 months?
Well, I think we got to obviously, trying to figure out the NIL landscape and collectives and how that impacts recruiting is certainly something that's top of mind for a lot of us. But, I want all our sports to be successful in the Missouri Valley. It's a really good baseball league and softball, et cetera. So we've got to continue to make investments out there. One thing we hadn't talked about is we did open up a new indoor hitting facility out at Rose Park, which is really important for those programs where you can really build that team camaraderie and chemistry and get the player development in there. So we want to continue to invest in things to help those programs. It could be anything from scoreboards and video boards to upgrade, things like that. I mean, obviously we want to make sure our student athletes are having a great experience in this new conference. We're probably going to learn a lot of things, Mike, and need to make adjustments and make investments and figure out, how many charter flights can we afford for certain sports and commercial travel and things like that. So that's very important. And then, continue to invest in, mental health and making sure, we're there to support our student athletes. I feel like we do a really, really good job with that. But as we all know in this profession, that's something that you got to continue to be mindful of and continue to figure out ways to creatively support your student athletes. And, the last thing I would just say, Mike, is, with the transformation committee and all the things coming out, it's really difficult as ADs to think, what is it going to look like 5 to 10 years from now? So some of it is I want to see how this plays out and what the landscape looks like. And then we can decide, where do we need to make the investments? Because if, some of these changes come down the pike that you're hearing, it's going to be very expensive, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions on where do we invest the limited resources we have.
Last question. I was thinking about this just as we were talking about all these different, things that are going on in college athletics right now. With the success that Belmont basketball has had, I would imagine, knowing Casey as I do, and you and Coach Byrd, you guys are probably not taking a lot of guys out of the portal, but you may be. But I also could see where you might be a risk at losing guys into the portal because your system and the ability to spot recruits that have ability, you've proven that you've got some guys that can really light up the scoreboard, right? What have you seen from that relative to your basketball success and recruiting at a place like Belmont in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I'll give you a stat. In the 33 years under Coach Byrd, we had 2 kids transfer. So our model has been built on recruiting good quality freshmen, even redshirting them. There's been a lot of kids that have redshirted over the years, and then watching them develop. And so by the time they're juniors or seniors, they're really, really productive, good players. Just last year alone, we had 2 players go into the portal and we lost them. One to Florida and one to Murray State. So we had to go into the portal ourselves, and we got 2 really good players that I think are going to fit our system, love our culture, all those things you want in a transfer. One is from Princeton, and that's a grad. So he's a grad transfer, has a ton of experience, can shoot the lights out of it from 3, and just has that good base of being in a good Ivy League, which the Ivy League's a good basketball league, as we know. And then we got a point guard from Tennessee Tech that was a really, really good player for them. And we're very fortunate that he felt Belmont would be the right move for him. And so it is something Casey and I talk about in his staff. I mean, our model of success is probably getting pressured more than any type of model in today's world of transfers and NIL and those types of things. And so we're going to continue to recruit high school kids. He's got 4, verbal commits already, and they're all high school kids. But there probably will be discussion of, do you have to hold back one scholarship for a grad transfer or whatnot? And those are things that we're all trying to calculate, right? We're all trying to see how sustainable is the portal going to be as active 4 years from now? How much of this is COVID related versus other things? And so it's something we talk about a lot. I still believe in my heart of hearts, and I may be naive, Mike, but I still believe 99% of our basketball players and most of our student athletes want to come to Belmont for all the right reasons, and we can provide them a great experience that at the end of the day should be the ultimate deciding factor on why you want to come here or not.
That's great. Well, hey, man, time has flown by. I just want to say thank you for coming on today. And I know folks will get a lot out of this interview and learn maybe something about Belmont they did not know before. So I appreciate you doing it.
Well, Mike, I appreciate it, man. It's great to spend time with you, and I appreciate all the research you did on my 3-point success and all that, man. I'm gonna be walking out of here with my head a little bit higher. So thank you for that.
Well, I plan on stopping by the Crockett Center at some point and seeing you take those young guys to task from the 3-point line. How about that?
Well, the shot's there. It's the running up and down the court that's not. But yeah, love to have you over anytime, my friend. You know you're welcome anytime.
That's great. All right, folks, you've been listening to Scott Corley, who is the athletic director of Belmont University. If you're in Nashville at some point, come by and visit them. Great basketball scene at the Curb Event Center. I'm Mike Hamilton. I'm your host for From the Chair, and we'll see you next week. Take care.